For 5 years I kept a secret. A secret that sat at the dinner table with us every Sunday. A secret that watched my daughter fall in love. A secret that held my grandchild on its knee. My son-in-law, Daniel, thought I was just a retired old man who liked to fish on weekends and spoil his granddaughter with ice cream. He had no idea that every morning when he walked into his office, he was walking into a building I built with my own 2 hands. My name is Eleanor Vance. And for 32 years I was the founder and CEO of Vance Technologies, a cybersecurity firm that grew from a one-woman operation in my garage to a publicly traded company worth over $400 million. But Daniel didn't know that. None of them did. And I intended to keep it that way. Until the day everything almost fell apart. Let me take you back to the beginning. I started Vance Technologies in 1989. I was 34 years old, recently divorced, with a 7-year-old daughter named Sarah. I had a computer science degree that people told me was a waste of money for a woman, a severance check from a company that laid me off because I was too difficult to work with, and a burning determination to prove everyone wrong. I worked 18-hour days in my garage. My daughter did her homework on a folding table next to my desk. I built encryption software that caught the attention of the Department of Defense. By 1995, I had 50 employees. By 2005, we went public. By 2015, I was one of the most powerful women in tech that nobody had ever heard of. Because I liked it that way. I never did interviews. I never posed for magazine covers. I let my board members handle the public face of the company. I stayed in the background doing what I did best, building things that mattered. When Sarah went to college, I made sure she never wanted for anything. But I also made sure she understood the value of hard work. She didn't grow up with a silver spoon. She grew up watching her mother fall asleep at a keyboard with lines of code still glowing on the screen. Sarah became a teacher. A high school history teacher. She loved her students. She loved her work. And she had no interest in the corporate world. I respected that. More than she ever knew. When she met Daniel, I was cautiously optimistic. He was a nice young man. Polite. Hardworking. A graduate in business administration from a good state school. He worked as a mid-level operations manager at a logistics company. It wasn't glamorous work, but he did it with integrity. They married in a small ceremony in our backyard. I cried. A lot. And when Daniel stood up to give his toast, he said something I never forgot. He said, "I promise to always take care of your daughter. I may not be a rich man, but I will never let her want for anything that love can provide." I like that. A lot. 6 months after the wedding, the logistics company Daniel worked for went under. Mass layoffs. He came home with a cardboard box and a face full of shame. Sarah called me. Her voice was worried. "Mom, Daniel lost his job. He's devastated. He's been applying everywhere, but the market is tough. I don't know what we're going to do." I told her not to worry. That everything would work out. Then I made a phone call to my HR director. "I have a candidate for the operations manager position," I said. "His name is Daniel Reeves. He's qualified. He's hardworking. And he has no idea who I am." My HR director paused. "You want us to hire your son-in-law without telling him you own the company?" "Yes." "Eleanor, with all due respect, that's insane." "Probably. Do it anyway." 3 weeks later, Daniel got the call. Vance Technologies. Operations manager. A 40% salary increase from his old job. Full benefits. A corner office with a window. He came to Sunday dinner that week with tears in his eyes. "I got the job," he said. "I don't know how. I don't know why they picked me out of hundreds of applicants. But I got it." I smiled over my glass of iced tea. "That's wonderful, Daniel. You deserve it." Sarah hugged him. My granddaughter, little Emma, clapped her hands. And I sat there, the invisible woman behind the curtain, watching my family find happiness I had quietly orchestrated. I told myself I would tell him eventually. When the time was right. When he was established. When he didn't feel like he owed me something. But the time was never right. Daniel thrived at Vance Technologies. He was good at his job. Better than good. He streamlined operations, cut inefficiencies, improved morale. Within 2 years he was promoted to Director of Operations. Within 4 years he was Vice President. And every step of the way I watched from the shadows. I attended company events under a false identity. I told people I was Eleanor's cousin, or old family friend. I wore glasses I didn't need and dressed down so no one would recognize me from the few old photographs that existed online. Daniel introduced me to his colleagues as his mother-in-law, Eleanor. "She's retired," he would say. "She likes to fish and spoil her granddaughter." They would nod politely and move on. No one ever asked what I retired from. No one ever connected the unassuming older woman in the cardigan with the founder whose name was still on the building. I became a ghost in my own company. And strangely, I loved it. Because I got to see something most CEOs never get to see. I got to see who Daniel really was when he didn't know anyone was watching. I saw him stay late to help a junior employee who was struggling with a project, even though it wasn't his responsibility. I saw him bring coffee to the security guards on the night shift. I saw him advocate for a single mother in his department who needed flexible hours. I saw him treat people with kindness. Not for recognition. Not for promotion. Because that was who he was. One night, after a company holiday party, Daniel drove me home. Sarah and Emma had left earlier. It was just the two of us in the car. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Eleanor, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How did you do it? Raise Sarah alone? Build a life?" "I struggle sometimes and I have a good job, a supportive wife." "You had nothing. How did you keep going?" I looked out the window at the city lights. "I didn't have a choice," I said. "When you have someone depending on you, you find strength you didn't know you had. And you keep showing up. Every single day. Even when you're tired. Even when you're scared. Because showing up is half the battle." He nodded slowly. "I want to be that kind of person. For Sarah. For Emma. I want to be someone they can count on." I reached over and patted his hand. "You already are, Daniel. You already are. But secrets have a way of coming out. Usually at the worst possible moment." It happened on a Tuesday. I was at the office. My office, the one on the top floor that Daniel had never been allowed into because it was reserved for executive leadership. I was meeting with my board of directors about a potential acquisition. A rival company had been circling us for months, trying to launch a hostile takeover. We were in the middle of delicate negotiations, and the board needed my guidance. I was dressed in my real clothes that day. A tailored black pantsuit. Pearl earrings that had belonged to my mother. The CEO uniform that I hadn't worn in years. The meeting ran long. By the time we finished, it was after 7 p.m. The executive floor was mostly empty. I walked out of the boardroom, lost in thought, and headed toward the private elevator that opened directly into my office. I never made it. The elevator doors opened and Daniel stepped out. He was holding a stack of files. His face was buried in a report. He looked up at the last second and our eyes met. He saw me. Not the cardigan-wearing grandmother who spoiled Emma with ice cream. The woman in the black pantsuit. The woman with the pearl earrings. The woman standing outside the boardroom of a company that bore her name. His face went through 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion. Recognition. Disbelief. And then something I never wanted to see in his eyes. Eleanor? His voice was barely a whisper. "What are you? How did you get up here? This floor is restricted." I opened my mouth. No words came out. For the first time in 32 years of running a company, I was speechless. Daniel looked past me at the boardroom. He saw the nameplate on the door. Board of Directors, Vance Technologies. Then he looked at me. At the pearls. At the suit. At the woman he thought he knew. He put the files down. Very slowly. Very carefully. "The founder of this company," he said, his voice hollow, "is Eleanor Vance. She started it in her garage. She built it into a Fortune 500 company. She stepped down as CEO 5 years ago, but she's still the majority shareholder. She still runs the board. She's a legend in the industry." He looked at me. "That's you. Isn't it?" I didn't deny it. I couldn't. "Yes, Daniel. That's me." He took a step back. Like I was a stranger. Like he didn't know me at all. "How long?" he asked. "How long have you been lying to me?" "I never lied. You let me believe you were a retired grandmother who liked to fish. You let me come to you for advice about my career, about my future, and all along you were the one who signed my paychecks. You were the one who decided my promotions. You were the one," his voice cracked. "You were the one who hired me, weren't you? That job. 6 years ago. When I was desperate. When I couldn't find anything. You made it happen." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence said everything. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. He looked like a man who had just discovered his entire reality was an illusion. "Why? Why would you do this? Why wouldn't you tell me?" I took a deep breath. "Because I wanted you to earn it. Not because I gave it to you. Because you deserve to know that your success was your own. My success was based on a lie." "No," I said, and my voice was firmer now. "Your success was based on your work. Your talent. Your integrity." I opened the door, Daniel. You walked through it. And you didn't just walk through it. You excelled. You led. You became the kind of leader that most companies would kill for. I didn't give you that. That was all you. He shook his head. I don't know if I can believe anything you say anymore. He walked past me into the stairwell. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud. I stood there in the empty hallway, the most powerful woman in the room, and I had never felt more powerless. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. Daniel stopped coming to Sunday dinner. Sarah called me, confused, asking if I knew what was wrong. I told her the truth. All of it. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Mom, you should have told him. You should have trusted him." "I know," I said. "I know." I tried to call Daniel. He didn't answer. I sent him emails. He didn't respond. I went to his office, my office, and he wouldn't see me. I had built an empire. I had negotiated with the Pentagon. I had taken my company public against every analyst who said a woman couldn't do it. But I could not figure out how to fix the damage I had done to my family. Then, on a Thursday morning, I got a call from my HR director. "Eleanor, we have a problem. Daniel just submitted his resignation." My heart stopped. "What?" "He says he's leaving. He won't say why. He won't discuss it. He's packed his office. He's leaving at the end of the week." I hung up the phone. And for the first time in 32 years, I walked out of my private office, down the executive hallway, and took the public elevator to the operations floor. People stared. Some recognized me. Most didn't. But they saw the woman in the black pantsuit, the pearl earrings, and the look of a woman on a mission. I walked through the cubicles, past the conference rooms, to the corner office where Daniel was packing his things into a cardboard box. He looked up when I entered. His face was closed. Guarded. "Eleanor," he said flatly, "you shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," I said. "Not like this." He turned back to his box. "I can't work here anymore. Not knowing what I know." "Then quit," I said. "But quit for the right reason. Not because you're angry at me. Because if you walk away from a job you love, from a team you've built, from a future you've earned, all because of my mistake, then you're punishing yourself for something I did wrong." He stopped packing. He looked at me and I saw the hurt still there, raw and fresh. "You could have trusted me," he said quietly. "I'm your family. I'm your daughter's husband. I'm the father of your granddaughter. And you treated me like an outsider. Like someone who couldn't handle the truth." I walked closer. Slowly. "I know. And I was wrong. I was so focused on protecting you from my shadow that I forgot that the people who love you don't want to be protected from the truth. They want to be trusted with it." I sat down in the chair across from his desk. For a moment, I wasn't the CEO. I was just a mother. A grandmother. A woman who had made a terrible mistake. I was scared, I admitted. I was scared that if you knew who I was, you would feel obligated. That you would feel like you owed me something. That your success would never feel like your own. I wanted you to know, in your heart, that everything you achieved was because you earned it. Not because of a family connection. Daniel didn't say anything. But he didn't leave either. "When I was a young woman," I continued, "I had people tell me I didn't belong. That I wasn't smart enough. That I wasn't tough enough. That no one would take a woman seriously in technology. I spent my whole career proving them wrong. And somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that the only way to protect the people I loved was to keep them separate from that world. From my world." I looked at him. "But you're not separate, Daniel. You're family. And family deserves the truth. Even when it's messy. Even when it's complicated." Daniel sat down heavily in his chair. He put his head in his hands. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked up. "I was so angry," he said. "I felt like a puppet. Like everything I thought I built was actually just you pulling strings. I understand that. And I'm sorry. But Daniel, look at what you've done. The operations restructuring? That was your idea. The diversity initiative? Yours. The employee mentorship program? Yours. I didn't do any of that. I couldn't have. You built those things. You changed this company. Not because of who your mother-in-law is. Because of who you are." He was quiet. Then slowly he smiled. It was a small smile. Wounded. But real. "You really do fish though, right? Tell me that wasn't a lie." I laughed. It came out shakier than I intended. "I really do fish. I'm terrible at it. But I love it." He shook his head. "I can't believe I taught my CEO how to tie a fishing knot. Technically, I'm the former CEO. And you're a much better fisherman than I am." He laughed. It was a real laugh. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Daniel didn't quit. He came back to Sunday dinner the next week. Sarah was waiting at the door with her arms crossed, but when she saw him walk in with me, she broke into a smile that lit up the whole room. Emma ran to him, wrapping her little arms around his legs. "Daddy?" "Grandma brought ice cream." Daniel picked her up and looked at me over her head. "Did she now?" "Chocolate chip cookie dough," I said. "Your favorite. Consider it a bribe." He grinned. "It's working." That night, after dinner, we sat on the porch like we had 100 times before. But this time Daniel asked me questions. Real questions. About the garage. About the early days. About the deals I made and the deals I lost. About what it felt like to be a woman building an empire in a man's world. And I told him. Everything. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You know, for the most powerful woman in technology, you make a pretty good mother-in-law." I raised an eyebrow. "Careful. I still own the board." He laughed. "And so did I. Here's what I learned. Secrets, even the ones we keep for love, have a weight. They sit on your shoulders. They build walls between you and the people you care about. And eventually they come out. Usually at the worst possible time. But here's the other thing I learned. The people who truly love you don't love you for your job title or your bank account or your corner office. They love you for who you are at the dinner table. For the way you hold their children. For the fishing trips and the bad jokes and the ice cream on Sunday afternoons. Daniel didn't need to know I was a CEO. But he did need to know that I trusted him. And now he does. He's still Vice President of Operations at Advanced Technologies. He still runs the best department in the company. And now, when we have board meetings, he sits at the table. Not because he's my son-in-law. Because he earned it. And me? I'm still the founder. I'm still the majority shareholder. But my favorite title is the one Daniel gave me that night on the porch. "Grandma," he said, "you're pretty impressive for an old lady who can't fish." "I'll take it."